Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of the Departmental Showcase. I'm Joshua Frame. I'm National Chair of the Federal Youth Network. And thanks very much to our panelists and to our participants for joining us this week. Alors, vous êtes ici pour le ministère sous les projecteurs et cette semaine, on a Environnement et Changement climatique Canada. So this week we are featuring Environment and Climate Change Canada, a very engaged and impactful department, and with a great focus on youth and students. And we're very excited to hear about all the opportunities that are going on at ECCC and to hearing from our group of panelists this week. I am joining you from the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people in the National Capital Region. And I recognize that many of you are joining us from across Canada, from various ancestral territories. So definitely good to take a moment and think about the ancestral territory that you're joining us from for today's webcast. But with that, I will hand off to our colleagues at ECCC. And during today's session, please engage using the chat function and using the Q&A function. So if you have any questions that you would like asked to the panelists and presenters, please do so using the Q&A function. Alors, pendant la séance, s'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction questions et réponses pour demander les questions aux panélistes et puis la fonction chat pour engager avec les autres participants pour cette séance et les panélistes pour cette séance. But with that, over to our ECCC colleagues. Thanks very much.
Bonjour, hi everyone. Alors, aujourd'hui, je vais être une de vos modératrices avec mon amie Julia. Et j'aimerais commencer par reconnaître que je suis sur le territoire traditionnel du peuple algonquin. Et comme Josh a dit, c'est une bonne idée de réfléchir au territoire ancestral sur lequel vous vous trouvez. Alors, moi, je travaille ici à Environnement et Changement climatique Canada dans le bureau du développement durable et j'adore mon travail et j'adore la culture ici à ECCC. Donc, je suis très contente de partager ça avec vous aujourd'hui. Over to you, Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm the English moderator for today. Thank you all for joining. I would like to take the opportunity to acknowledge that I am located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Mohawk people. However, I recognize that we all work in different areas, and it's important for you all to recognize which traditional land you're located on. So I am the co-op student at ECCC in Environment and Youth Engagement Division. As a junior policy analyst, I'm the co-lead of the department's National Youth Network. I'm a first-year student at Concordia University, and I'm doing an honors in sociology.
Donc, on va maintenant présenter notre panel, mais juste pour vous dire, si c'est trop petit sur votre écran, vous pouvez aller en haut. Vous devrez être capable de sélectionner plus d'options et puis mettre votre écran en plein écran. So you can put your screen in full screen if you're having a hard time seeing the presentation, and it will be available as well after. And with that, we'll present our lovely panelists. So first we have Holly. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Great to be with you today. My name is Holly Palin, and I'm the Director of the Innovation and Youth Engagement at Environment and Climate Change Canada. I've previously worked in a number of different branches here at ECCC, including international affairs and strategic policy, as well as the meteorological service. And I'm looking forward to talking with you today about our department. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Hi, everybody. My name is Iga Kurzidlo. I recently joined ECCC's Innovation and Youth Engagement Division as the Manager of Policy Analysis and Youth. It's a very exciting position. I've been in ECCC since 2018 in the Public Affairs and Communications branch. I've served as Senior Advisor to the ADM. And like many of you, I've had student work experience and terms at the Canadian International Development Agency and Finance Canada. And between 2013 and 2015, I was part of the cohort of the Advanced Policy Analyst Program, which is a government recruitment program. So now I'm a bit further along in my career, but I thought I'd share that with you in case you have questions at the end. And I'm looking forward to talking to you a little bit today about the role of the Innovation and Youth Engagement Division and some of our initiatives. Thanks so much.
Hi everyone, bonjour à tous. My name is Tina Cobb. I am the manager of the Stakeholder Relations team in the Sustainable Development Office here at Environment and Climate Change Canada. I've been with ECCC since 2008, so a long time. I did do a 3-year stint at Employment and Social Development Canada at the Sustainable Development Goals Unit there. But I've been working on sustainable development issues, climate change, et cetera, for several years now. So it's a pleasure to be here today and tell you a little bit more about the work of our small but mighty office within the department. Thank you.
Bonjour, hi tout le monde. My name is Santana Ochoa-Briggs, and I am a research analyst on Tina's team, on the Stakeholder Relations team. So I started at ECCC in January as a student, and now I'm on casual contract. So I'm finishing my master's up in public policy, also at Concordia. And my education and my other experience comes from development. I also have worked in the peace education in the nonprofit sector. So that's me.
Thank you to our panelists. Merci beaucoup. Donc, je vais passer la parole à Holly pour la prochaine partie de la présentation.
Merci beaucoup. Alors, Environnement et Changement climatique Canada est le ministère fédéral responsable d'un vaste éventail d'enjeux liés à l'environnement. The environmental portfolio also includes Parks Canada Agency and the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada. Here at ECCC, our programs focus on minimizing threats to Canada's environment from pollution, equipping Canadians to make informed decisions about weather and climate and water conditions, and conserving and restoring Canada's natural environment. Le ministère aborde ces enjeux par l'entremise de diverses mesures, comme la collaboration avec nos partenaires stratégiques, notamment les provinces, les territoires et les peuples autochtones, la surveillance, la recherche scientifique, l'élaboration des politiques et des règlements, ainsi que par l'application des lois environnementales. ECCC is relied upon to provide science-based environmental information and services so that Canadians can make informed decisions related to their health and safety, whether that be related to toxic ingredients in products or information about weather and climate hazards. Next slide, please. Environnement et Changement climatique Canada a 4 responsabilités fondamentales. So ECCC has 4 core areas of responsibility. La prise de mesures sur la croissance propre et les changements climatiques couvre plusieurs sujets, comme la croissance propre et l'atténuation des changements climatiques, y compris la réglementation des émissions. Aussi, un autre exemple est l'adaptation au changement climatique. So current priorities include advancing the strengthened climate plan and the emissions reduction plan to achieve a 40 to 45% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 from 2005 levels. This work also includes achieving net zero emissions no later than 2050. Another area of responsibility, c'est la prévention et gestion de la pollution, qui couvre plusieurs sujets comme la qualité de l'air, la qualité de l'eau et des partenariats sur les écosystèmes. An example from the minister's mandate letter in this area is to achieve zero plastic waste by 2030. For example, by continuing to implement the national ban on harmful single-use plastics in working with provinces and territories to implement and enforce an ambitious recycling target of 90% for plastic beverage containers. Another area of responsibility that I mentioned earlier is predicting weather and environmental conditions, including air quality. On air quality, we work very closely with Health Canada. In terms of the weather and environmental observations, for example, we have the Meteorological Service of Canada that produces our weather forecasts and warnings. And that also includes hydrological services, where we work closely with provinces and territories to monitor stream flow, river flow, etc., to help inform flood prediction. You can also, if you don't have it already, download the Weather Can app, which is the weather app that's based on Environment and Climate Change Canada's data. And finally, the fourth area of responsibility that I'll talk about is conserving nature. So this includes protecting endangered species, developing recovery plans for species at risk, working on biodiversity policy and partnerships, and protecting migratory birds. Specifically, ECCC manages national wildlife areas and works with partners to establish new protected areas. In line with the 2020 speech from the throne, to commit Canada to conserve 25% of its land by 2025 towards 30% by 2030. This year, you might be interested to know that ECCC will be working with China to coordinate hosting the UN Convention on Biological Diversity in Montreal, COP15, in December. The conference will focus on adopting the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, which will provide a strategic vision and roadmap for conserving, protecting, and restoring ecosystems and biodiversity. Next slide, please. So this slide just gives you an idea of our organization and how we're structured. You can see that we have a number of different branches, and you can get an idea of some of the areas that we focus on. For example, international affairs, that's responsible for leading climate change negotiations. Or the Canadian Wildlife Service, as mentioned, that would, for example, do a lot of field work related to species, their habitats, and such. So I'll stop there and pass it back to the moderators, Sarah and Julia. Thank you.
Merci, Holly. Alors, prochainement, j'aimerais vous parler des réseaux et initiatives qu'on a ici à ECCC. Une des parties que j'aime le plus de travailler ici, c'est comment le département est ouvert d'esprit et encourageant pour tout le monde. Donc, comme vous pouvez voir, on a tout plein de réseaux et initiatives qui s'adressent à plein d'intérêts et à des circonstances particulières. Et puis aussi, vous pouvez toujours commencer un réseau si le vote que vous aimeriez n'existe pas. Par exemple, je fais partie du réseau national des jeunes. Et c'est fantastique, c'est comme ça que j'ai eu l'opportunité de vous parler aujourd'hui. Alors, voilà, je voulais partager ça avec vous. So, in English, I just want to share how much I'm proud of the networks and initiatives that we have here at ECCC. There's really something for everyone. The department's really open-minded and encouraging of its staff. And so you can join a network or an initiative or even start one if you don't see the one you're looking for. For example, I'm part of the National Youth Network, and that's how I got the opportunity to speak to you today. Alors, je vais passer le mot à Iga. Que Iga est là?
Oh, bonjour. Désolée. Alors, je vais parler d'initiative au-delà de 2020. C'est une initiative axée sur l'adoption de mentalités et de comportements qui nous permettront de bâtir une fonction publique plus agile, mieux outillée et fondamentalement plus inclusive. Au-delà de 2020 vise également à offrir des outils et des structures modernes aux fonctionnaires, à améliorer la santé mentale et le bien-être, à attirer et à retenir les meilleurs talents et à constituer un effectif diversifié et inclusif. L'initiative est dirigée par le secrétariat du renouvellement de la fonction publique du bureau du conseil privé. Next slide, s'il vous plaît. So ECCC developed a Beyond 2020 action plan for 2019 to 2022, including 14 initiatives under all 3 pillars. So the 3 pillars, as I mentioned, are agile, inclusive, and equipped. And maybe I'll just highlight a few of the initiatives under our action plan. So under the Agile pillar, we ran a micro assignments program here at ECCC, which allowed managers to post short-term micro assignments for anyone in the department to apply for, allowing them to stay in their current role, but take on new responsibilities in another team. So this provided opportunities for employees to develop new skills, gain new experience, build new networks, and it allowed managers to obtain specific knowledge or skills required for specific projects. Employees are also able to post an ad marketing their skills and experience on the micro assignments virtual task board that we have. And there they're able to basically market themselves for potential opportunities and just with the sort of intention to make sure that each employee is able to use and build their expertise in the department to the maximum capacity. Another initiative, this time under the inclusive pillar, is the mentorship program, which matches interested mentees and mentors and kickstarts a relationship between them based on support and openness, and it helps create lasting career building relationships and opportunities for both sides. So in 2021-2022, we administered 2 cohorts of the mentorship program at Environment and Climate Change Canada, and we had about 200 participants in each cohort, which is a really great uptake. So we're really proud of that one. Under the equipped pillar, we have an ECCC 101 orientation program, which is a week-long program. It's run on a quarterly basis, and the objective is to welcome and properly equip new employees as they join the department. So over the past year, we've ran 4 of these orientation programs. There's sessions from Monday to Friday on different topics, which helps provide kind of a great overview of the department. And we've actually been fortunate enough to have participation from the deputy ministers as well at these orientation sessions 4 times a year, which is great exposure and connection with our senior management. I'd say probably over the last year, we've likely reached over, I'd say around 1,000 or even more employees through these, through the ECCC 101 orientation program. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Just, I guess, before we move on, I also want to mention that because our action plan, our Beyond 2020 action plan is kind of at its tail end, we're now looking to develop a new sort of refreshed 3-year action plan. So I think it'll retain the 3 pillars of our previous action plan, and it'll build on all the progress that we've made with the 14 key initiatives, and try to take it a step further to sort of continue with the great progress we've achieved, but also adapt the plan to a new environment and context with the last couple of years of the pandemic, and a big emphasis on evolution and evolving how we work. So I guess, you know, stay tuned for that. If you're interested in getting an updated version of our action plan, we can always share that once it's available. Okay, next slide, please. Alors, je travaille au sein de la division de l'innovation et de la mobilisation des jeunes, DIMG. DIMG appuie l'engagement d'Environnement et Changement climatique Canada à bâtir un écosystème novateur en créant des incitatifs au changement, en faisant progresser l'expérimentation, en renforçant la capacité d'innovation et en mobilisant les jeunes au sein du ministère et ailleurs. So IED, as we are called, is the departmental lead for the Beyond 2020 Action Plan. So we coordinate across the department to create that plan and kind of oversee its implementation. We also build capacity and provide expertise to other parts of the department in areas like behavioral insights and user-centered design. And we support innovation throughout the department as well through things like prize-based challenges, experimentation. We put on events and different learning opportunities as well. Another part of our core work is to support the ECCC Youth Champion. We have an ADM level youth champion at Environment and Climate Change Canada, an assistant deputy minister named Michael Zink. And it's his role to kind of amplify youth voices in the department. He supports our departmental national youth network and other relevant events and initiatives across the department related to youth. For example, he'll be sending out a message for International Youth Day on August 12th, and he's quite engaged. So we're really lucky to have that kind of visibility for youth in the department. IED also has a center of expertise on youth, which the purpose of that team is to support youth engagement in the department and connect branches and different teams with youth organizations, relevant universities, Indigenous youth. We also implement Canada's youth policy, and we have our own departmental youth engagement framework, which was developed in 2017. And given all the changes that have taken place since then, we're looking at updating the framework right now. So hopefully we'll have a new and updated framework in the coming months. We also report to the Youth Secretariat, the Government of Canada Youth Secretariat, on youth engagement activities related to our mandate. And we provide support to a DG committee on youth, which is led by Canadian Heritage. Another core initiative that IED is responsible for is the ECCC National Youth Network. The network facilitates communication, professional development initiatives, and networking by connecting and supporting over 1,000 students and young employees across the country. It's our biggest network in the department. It's got an executive committee comprised of youth that allows sort of leadership for the organization. They put on a summer speaker series with average attendance of about 100 employees per session. For example, we have a couple of sessions coming up on telework and one on Canada's youth policy. The National Youth Network also organizes peer-to-peer speed networking events, which are really popular and usually get participation from about 80 people, which is great. And we have regional networks as well within the National Youth Framework, or sorry, the National Youth Network, which allows people in the regions to maintain connections with each other, attend events, and do in-person and virtual social and professional networking. And then lastly, I would like to highlight the Environment and Climate Change Youth Council. which is expected to be announced soon. It will include 10 Canadians between the ages of 18 and 25. And this Council of Youth will advise the Minister of the Environment and departmental officials on priority files in the department, and they'll provide sort of that youth perspective and will be consulted meaningfully and will be reported back to let them know how their input was used in policy making. It's been a year-long application and assessment process for the Youth Council. And so we're really excited to be hopefully announcing it soon. And I'll leave it there for my portion of the presentation. And I think next up we have either Santana or Tina. I'm not sure who's going next. Thanks very much.
Hi, thanks. I think I'm up next. So bonjour encore et merci de m'avoir donné l'occasion d'être ici aujourd'hui pour vous parler un peu du travail du Bureau de développement durable. So I feel very privileged to be able, because of all the wonderful things that do happen at the department and the great branches, to be able to talk to you a little bit about the Sustainable Development Office. So we are responsible for coordinating the development and implementation of the Federal Sustainable Development Strategy, or as we affectionately call it, the FSDS, because it has to be an acronym. For a bit of a background, in Canada, we have a Federal Sustainable Development Act. So we have legislation that actually mandates us to set out or provides the legal framework for developing and implementing a Federal Sustainable Development Strategy in Canada. So there were some recent significant changes to the Act that came into force about a year ago. I won't go through them all, but I will just highlight a couple of them. So it really broadened the focus of the Federal Sustainable Development Strategy from environmental sustainability to include the three pillars of sustainable development. So the environmental, social, and economic aspects of sustainable development. It also broadened the whole of government mandate. So now we have over 95 federal departments, agencies, and organizations that contribute to the FSDS. And this is up from an original 26. So a big jump. So it's really a whole of government strategy. Under the Federal Sustainable Development Act, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change is responsible for releasing a draft strategy every 3 years, and it must undergo a 120-day public consultation period before being tabled in Parliament. So we actually just finished the consultation period on the 2022 to 2026 draft Federal Sustainable Development Strategy. It wrapped up on July 9th. And we will be tabling a final strategy after sort of incorporating much of the feedback that we've heard over this summer, working with other government departments to strengthen the strategy. And then we will be tabling that strategy in Parliament in November. Alors, le SFDD rassemble en un seul endroit toutes les initiatives majeures du gouvernement du Canada en matière d'environnement et de développement durable, telles que l'émission net zero, l'adaptation au changement climatique et l'écologisation du gouvernement. So we always say that the strength of the FSDS is that it brings all major government of Canada environmental and sustainable development issues and initiatives, policies, programs together into one document. So this includes transition to net zero, climate adaptation, mitigation, greening government, etc. And this really drives sustainable development across government by gathering and highlighting the most prominent targets and actions, and by consulting and mobilizing Canadians on sustainability issues. So while this will be our fifth FSDS, it'll be the first one that was developed under this strengthened act. and it's the first to be framed using the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations 2030 Agenda, and with a focus on, their environmental, social, and economic dimensions. So we're really excited about this strategy. Encourage you to check it out. And I will now céder la parole à Santana pour vous parler un peu de notre récente consultation sur la version provisoire de la stratégie. So over to you, Santana.
Thanks, Tina. So as part of the stakeholder relations team that Tina and I both work on, one of the most important parts of our job is actually running the public consultations on the FSDS. So this means informing Canadians about how the Government of Canada is taking action on sustainable development at the federal level. It also means generating feedback from internal and external stakeholders to inform the development of the final document. It's also supporting an ongoing dialogue between the Government of Canada and Canadians to advance progress. So this means making sure that the public is heard, that they're consulted, and that they're involved in the actual process of planning for a sustainable future. So for the consultation period on this most recent draft, which ran from March 11th to July 9th, we used a handful of different methods to reach Canadians. So this included our social media channels. So if you follow any of the ECCC social media, hopefully you saw some of our posts. We also used PlaySpeak, which is an online engagement platform to stimulate discussion. There's the FSDS e-strategy. So this was an online tool where stakeholders could sift and sort through the content and actually directly submit their comments to us via an online template. We also hosted up to 17 public webinars, and we had a bunch of bilateral meetings and targeted outreach with key stakeholders. So next slide, please. So throughout the consultation, we were incredibly lucky to hear from hundreds of Canadians, and we received numerous submissions. So on our team, we're responsible for making sure that all of these submissions are read, cataloged, analyzed, and made sure that they're given to the right people to action them. So some of the key takeaways we received were highlighting the importance of having youth actively engaged throughout the consultations and the decision-making process. We also heard how important it was to define the term equity and how it's used throughout the draft. We heard that setting longer term targets was identified as essential. And finally, as the recognition for Indigenous self-governance and support for Indigenous ownership and leadership. So people stress the importance of considering history and culture as a way to integrate Indigenous perspectives. And this is something we heard quite often during consultations. So working with stakeholders and members of the public is an important part of the policy process in general. It really helps us ensure the policies we create are reflecting the priorities of Canadians, and they help us address the most pressing issues faced in the face of sustainable development. So I greatly enjoy working on this team, and I really love this work, and it really feels like I'm making a difference. So I'm really happy to be here. So now I'm going to hand it back over to our moderators.
Merci beaucoup, Tina et Santana. So that concludes the official presentation part. Nous allons maintenant passer à la période de questions et réponses. Donc, je vais parler en français pour cette partie et Julia va parler en anglais.
Yes, you can write in the Q&A portion of the Zoom if you have any questions. I see that there are a decent amount in so far. So the most voted question was, what kind of experience would be helpful for students who work in a different department and want to be bridged into the ECCC postgrad?
Alors, je vais répéter la question en français. Quelqu'un a demandé quel genre d'expérience serait important pour les étudiants qui aimeraient être bridged, donc faire le saut de employé étudiant à employé permanent dans le gouvernement et spécifiquement ECCC. Est-ce qu'une de nos panélistes aimerait prendre cette question?
Hi, maybe I could jump in just to start. So I think it's a great question. I think it really depends on what area you're interested in working in. ECCC has so many different types of work, from policy analysts, where obviously experience in policy or economic analysis is going to be really helpful. to things that are much more specialized, where you would want to have experience perhaps in, in field work or experience in certain technical areas. So I guess just in general, it's hard to give a broad answer because it really depends on what type of work and what classification you're interested in working in. But certainly, like in general, having some knowledge of environmental and resource issues and priorities is going to be helpful. Certainly having an understanding of ECCC's mandate, what are the pieces of legislation that guide what we do and who we work with. And certainly experience in kind of partnerships, collaboration, and that kind of thing is often really helpful in a lot of different areas of the department, because we do often work with partners, whether that be other government departments or whether it be provinces and territories, industry, or NGOs. So those are just a few sort of general areas of experience that might be some examples. Thanks.
Merci, Holly.
So the next question is, given that many people have different views and political opinions on climate change, does Environment Canada structure finding vary drastically when a new government comes into power?
Sorry, je m'excuse, Julia, you kind of cut out. Would you mind repeating the question?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
So given that many people have different views and political opinions on climate change, does ECCC structure or findings vary drastically when a new government comes into power?
Je vais répéter la question en français. C'était, vu que les personnes ont des opinions politiques différentes, est-ce que la structure de ECCC ou comme l'argent qu'on reçoit, est-ce que ça varie quand il y a des nouveaux gouvernements?
Peut-être je peux prendre cette question aussi. Alors, certainement, il y a des changements qui sont reliés aux priorités du gouvernement. So, of course, there are always some changes and adjustments in terms of the priorities of the government that is in power of the day. So a lot of our work is foundational in terms of what is set out in the acts that give us the authorities and areas of responsibility to continue to pursue. But of course, as each speech from the throne lays out certain priorities, and each mandate letter that the Prime Minister sends to each minister identifies different priorities within that overall scope of framework. So the department will certainly adjust to ensure that we can deliver on the priorities that are identified, and those can change a bit over time, influenced by obviously a number of factors, including changes in the international and national context to respond to what is most important of the day. So there have been some changes in structure over time, but it's a combination of things that influences that.
Thank you. So the next question is, for those who work in the international affairs at ECCC, what kind of work did you do? What kinds of skills did you develop? What were some of the pros and cons?
So I don't know about anyone else, but I worked a little bit in international affairs. Is there a panelist that would like to answer this question first, though?
Sure, I can. I worked in the International Affairs branch for 7 years on international climate change policy. So I think I went to the UNFCCC Conference of the Parties in COP 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. So a bit of experience there. I think, some of the interesting skills that I learned during that time are, certainly diplomatic in nature and good negotiating skills. Also found that, when you're doing a lot of international traveling, international meetings, international reporting, you have to really learn how to write succinctly, briefly, concise briefing notes. So learning how to properly write reports in that respect is a really important skill. but certainly there's a lot of people skills as well that you need to develop. Understanding cultural differences as well is an important one. So yeah, it's a great experience, depending on sort of which. It's still a relatively broad group doing a bunch of different things, but yeah, those would be some of those key takeaways that I experienced. Thanks.
Merci Tina. J'ai oublié de dire la question en français avant. C'était pour ceux qui ont travaillé dans les affaires internationales à ECCC, quel genre de travail est-ce que vous avez fait et quel genre de habileté est-ce que vous avez développé. Alors, merci beaucoup, Tina. C'était vraiment intéressant. Je ne savais pas que vous aviez cette expérience. Et moi aussi, je suis très intéressée par les affaires internationales et j'ai eu l'occasion de faire une affectation, un assignment pour 4 mois, plutôt cette année. C'était vraiment intéressant et ça démontre ce qu'on disait avant sur comment il y a beaucoup d'opportunités d'essayer différentes choses ici au ministère. Et j'ai eu cette opportunité grâce au réseautage aussi. Donc, ouais, vraiment, c'est un excellent milieu de travail. Shall we move to the next question, Julia?
Yeah, thanks. So the next question is, what is the best way to join a team that you're interested in at ECCC?
OK, so la question c'était, quelle est la meilleure façon de rejoindre l'équipe qui vous intéresse à ECCC?
I can maybe take a stab at that one. I mean, I'm newly in a manager position, and I think recruitment is not always easy. When you're juggling work priorities. And so I think a really great way to inquire about opportunities is to identify the area that you're interested in and contact the manager directly. Share your CV, indicate your interest, let them know if you're in any pools or whether you are part of like the FSWEP program. Or have relevant experience to share. I think that's all very helpful, and one avenue to get opportunities.
Merci, Iga.
Thank you. So the next question is, what sort of experience does ECCC look for in field workers?
Would you like me to take that one? OK, la question était, quelle sorte d'expérience est-ce qu'on cherche dans les gens qui font le travail dans les champs? Je pense que c'est la façon de le dire.
Oui, merci.
So, is that right? Yeah. So, I mean, what's really fascinating about ECCC is we have incredible work in the field. We have incredible field work. We have people working in the most northern part of Canada in Alert, 700 kilometers from the North Pole. We have people working in all parts of the country in terms of doing environmental enforcement actions, investigations, in our national wildlife areas. So the amount and diversity of fieldwork is really quite fascinating. And so it really depends. If you're interested in something like the hydrological service, where you're going out, what people do is, they go out and they check measurements of equipment. So having like a technical engineering background is often really helpful for that sort of work, because it's a lot of technical work, but it's also a lot of statistics and analysis. So oftentimes you'll find people in those types of roles that come with an engineering background. Then you have people who are more wildlife specialists. Il y a les gens qui leur spécialisation, c'est vraiment dans l'écologie, ou être des gens avec de l'expérience à faire like to go and survey birds or survey animals. And so in that sense, you need that type of experience in wildlife observation and identification, things like that. And I guess another area is in the science and technology branch and in our environmental protection branch, there are other types of field work too. Like, for example, people will go out and measure actual emissions from smokestacks of particular companies and things like that. So, you know, having a scientific background is really important, or looking at toxins in water quality, where you need to have like that real sort of toxicological background. So all that to say, there are many different types of fieldwork roles. So depending on your background and what you're interested in, maybe that gives you a bit of a sense of some of the different areas where there might be job opportunities for you here.
Thank you. So the next question is, could you speak a little on what collaboration on environmental issues looks like between Environment Canada and the provinces and territories and local communities?
Pouvez-vous parler un peu au sujet de comment le gouvernement fédéral et les provinces et territoires collaborent ensemble sur les questions environnementales?
I can maybe start and then turn it to Holly, who can talk sort of more broadly to the government's stakeholder relations. But certainly in the consultation process that we just underwent, we had a lot of conversations with provinces and territories and with local communities, cities, and down to sort of rural and remote communities. And it's done, I think, depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish. There isn't really a one-size-fits-all to public consultations or collaborating with, you know, all levels of government and our, you know, in the private sector, the NGOs, civil society, et cetera. You know, in the case of the Federal Sustainable Development Strategy, we reached out at the deputy level to the provinces and territories. We sent them a letter. Our deputy sent a letter of outreach, you know, explaining that we had this Federal Sustainable Development Strategy out for public consultation and welcoming feedback. And it was really well received. We got excellent, you know, information back on the strategy and sort of the regional perspective of what sustainable development means in that particular province or territory or community. We did, like Santana mentioned, use sort of a myriad of tools to reach folks, but also direct outreach. You know, so we reached out to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to reach municipalities across Canada. But it really is still sort of a, you know, it really is it's my favorite part of the job, sort of that interlocutor between the federal government, other levels of government, and organizations and private sector. Certainly in sustainable development, it's very much, and climate change, a shared responsibility that kind of requires all hands on deck to get work done. So I think, you know, you meet people where they're at, and you do that in different ways through different tools and tactics. But yeah, there's also, you know, much more formal mechanisms like the Canadian Council, or the CCME, remind me the right name, Holly, of ministers responsible for environment. And we had, you know, the Pan-Canadian framework on climate change. So there are also some sort of more corporate mechanisms as well, but it's kind of a, you know, a mixed bag in it, and it's really about relationship building and yeah, meeting people where they're at. So maybe Holly, you want to fill in?
Thanks. I don't think I have anything to add. I think that was a great answer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So the next question is, does ECCC do any work in health policy?
La question c'est, est-ce que ECCC fait du travail dans les politiques de la santé?
Maybe I'll take that one too, just because the Federal Sustainable Development Strategy is very fresh in my mind. So we do work closely with PHAC and Health Canada on sustainable development issues and sort of that nexus between climate and health. You know, the department is responsible for the Air Quality Health Index, for example, that plays an important role in informing Canadians' health. We also are responsible for the chemical management plan, which also affects sort of the human health and the health of our biodiversity. So yeah, we certainly do work closely with our colleagues in Health Canada on policies and programming that do sort of meet health and environment.
Perfect, thanks. So the next question is, I've noticed a trend among managers and government in general for candidates to have graduate degrees. Is this something that ECCC also prefers? I mean, there's another question that kind of goes with it. It's what kind of bachelor degree or degree should somebody looking to join this, like Environment Canada, be in?
Donc, la question, c'est est-ce que le département préfère un diplôme de maîtrise ou est-ce qu'un bac, ça suffit et quel genre de diplôme en général est préféré?
I could maybe provide a preliminary response to that. I think it's true. Often in the job posters, you see kind of a reference to a graduate degree in the education criteria for posted positions. But there's a lot of the time also there's wording in there to kind of broaden it. I can't remember exactly what the wording is, but it alludes to the fact that a combination of work experience and education that is equivalent to a graduate degree would suffice as well. So I think generally, I would say from my experience, that's pretty broadly interpreted. So if you don't have a graduate degree, but you have great work experience or volunteer experience in a specific field related to public policy, social sciences, or economics, I think the case could be made for how that could be seen as equivalent. And therefore, I would still encourage you to apply if the wording is a bit broader to allow for a combination of work and education experience to qualify for a position.
Perfect, thanks. Does ECCC offer employees the opportunity to work remotely full-time, especially in the area of communications?
Donc, est-ce que ECCC offre l'opportunité de travailler de la maison à temps plein, surtout dans le domaine des communications?
From what I understand, I mean, we've been in such a tumultuous environment over the last couple of years, and I think most people, I think, in the department, or a lot of people in the department, have been working remotely full time. As the pandemic is kind of moving into a more hopefully stable phase, there's definitely more of a move to come into the office somewhat regularly for those who you know are able to, who are close enough to an office to be able to come in. I think by the fall, the department is going to be requiring each staff member to sign a telework agreement, which will include having conversations with your manager about how many times per week you would be coming into the office. So I think we're still, the
the circumstances are still evolving, and I think we're still navigating, you know, the in-office work versus remote work. I think we're definitely in a hybrid environment where we're going to see a little bit of both. And that's just kind of like, you know, an outlook for the next couple of months. Who knows how things will continue to change in the future. We'll kind of have to see.
So we don't have much time left. So I'm just going to ask a general question. What is your favorite part about working for Environment Canada?
Donc, pour conclure la séance, on va demander aux panélistes c'est quoi leur partie préférée de leur emploi. Et puis, pour les questions qu'on n'a pas pu répondre, on va mettre une adresse courriel dans le chat et vous pouvez faire la suite avec nous si vous voulez.
I'll start. I'll be quick because I know everyone will want to chime in here, all the panelists. But for me, it's just working with, you know, what I would consider sort of a family of friends that are all, you know, dedicated to the cause of improving the health and the health of the environment and the health of Canadians, and, you know, wanting to see the very best for Canada's future and, you know, biodiversity and nature. So it's nice to be working with a collective of people all striving towards that goal. It's a really nice environment.
Merci, Tina.
I'll chime in very quickly as well. My comments are very much in line with Tina's. I love the people. I've worked in different departments in the central agencies where there was a big focus on kind of, you know, individual focused work. And working here at ECCC, I really like the fact that it's a youthful organization. There's a lot of young people. It feels vibrant and dynamic. People are easy to work with generally and quite collaborative. And I find that environment to be very supporting. Thanks.
Maybe I can add, as a very recent student, my favorite part about working here is definitely the people, and also the opportunities to learn and try different things. So even within the same team, having the opportunity to work on multiple different projects or try different things to improve your skills across different projects is a great opportunity to learn. So I really love working here, and yeah, it's my favorite part.
Maybe I'll just quickly add that I really love the fact that there's such a diversity of people working here and from all across the country in such interesting areas of work. And it's fantastic to have that opportunity to learn from colleagues and learn about their work. It's always interesting. I'm always learning.
Merci à tous les panélistes. Nous avons entendu plusieurs belles choses de pourquoi les gens aiment travailler ici, de les collègues, les fichiers sur lesquels on travaille. Moi, personnellement, j'ajouterais les réseaux. Donc, j'espère que vous avez appris quelque chose, puis que si jamais vous voulez un changement de carrière, que vous allez considérer ECCC dans le futur.
Thank you for joining today's session. I hope you all found it interesting. And I posted a few links in the chat, so feel free to check them out and email the National Youth Network if you have any more questions. Thank you.
Merci à tous. Bonne journée.
And just to give a few minutes of or a quick closing, thank you very much to each of you for sharing your thoughts and experiences today. And the video of today's session will be posted to the link that was shared in the chat for the Departmental Showcase. And next week, we will feature Correctional Service of Canada. So please join us for that. And this series will continue until August 15th. Alors, merci beaucoup tout le monde et merci beaucoup à Environnement et Changement Climatique Canada. Bonne journée. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a great day.
Merci.
Merci.